not yet.
Hey Eva, how's this slate? Can I get you to swap to a medium or better avatar for me?
Yep, that's better.
Hey, I'm just suddenly imagining next thing you see in front of you is that text box that says Sirix would like to offer you fuel or you can fight them right in front of you.
Crush.
Like an ad,
So,
like a pop-up ad that you need to
I-
close. That would be better.
Dude, we
I
get
don't know
refresh
which
system.
angle is better, but like I don't know which angle is better because I have like a wide open angle to get Cirx with mine, or I can go in between me and Swordfox and it looks like we're doing the Space Theater 3000 where we're just commentating on a film.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Alright, we're starting, so I'm silent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Yes.
copy choose of the avatar and that's...
If I have a green light from the VRCon team, I am ready whenever.
Good.
Yeah, you can go to you.
We ready?
Yes.
Hell yeah!
Yep.
Welcome everybody to my little talk here about the Airblast and its development. If you're expecting to see a lot of geek code and details on the game's code itself, you are in bad luck because first of all, I'm not coding in Udon Sharp, I'm coding in Node Graphs, and nobody wants to see that anyway. So I'm sparing you. I'm sparing you the pain that will cause on you if you are a professional coder, because I have merely coded for about 3 years. When the Udon was released, that was the first time I touched code, and my goal here is not to brag about anything of that, but rather to inspire every single one of you to do your own cool projects, because I want to also see cool stuff in VR, right? We all want to see cool stuff, and the only way to see cool stuff is by doing it ourselves sometimes. How do you get started with a massive project like Fate of the Airblast that took me about a year to create then? First, you have to swallow a big pill of nothing is unique. Every production you will always ever see and experience is based on something that already exists, right? I'm pretty sure there is like a philosophical term for this kind of thinking. I will give you some examples. For example, Michael Bay did not invent explosions, right? But he's using it pretty well in his movies, and that's what he's known for. Another one, Skrillex did not invent the half beat, but dubstep relies on it. To be fair, he didn't invent dubstep either. That was actually done by some Londoners way before him. Shout out to like 16-bit and things like that. Lastly, also, Picasso did not invent neither the paintbrush or the canvas, but he did invent his style in painting in that very weird, odd-looking art that I don't really get. But some people think it's really cool. So it's not really also where you take ideas from, but it's more about where you take them to. If you take your idea really to heart, or your inspiration really to heart, and go full in on that throughout the whole project, it will become your thing. It will become something you made in the end, because all of you will be all over that. It's just something it's based on from the beginning. And whenever I go to like Twitter or I watch someone stream Fate of the Airblast and explain to someone what Airblast is, there is always someone saying, Fate of the Airblast is basically Faster Than Light in VR. And that's really, really funny, because when I started making Airblast, I thought, I really wonder what Faster Than Light would be like in VR. And since people are giving that response to it, I think I nailed it in a way. So if you don't know what Faster Than Light is, it's a 2D single-player game where you control a crew on a ship from above. You can pause the game, you can rub your beard as you're thinking about your next moves. It's quite the chill-out game, unless you're going like no pause mode for some stupid reason. But I had to solve a few things to make it work in social VR and VR in general. There's no pausing in a multiplayer game like this, right? So there was a lot of things that I have to put into it as my own intuition of what I was looking for in the game. So let's see here. So I just came from a 3.5-hour long Laserdome tournament, which I have been commentating, so I am a little bit tired. But how do you get started to begin with? Well, there is a really cool community called Day 9 TV. If you have been playing a lot of StarCraft back in the day, you probably know who Day 9 is. In there, they do something called a 1-month project, right? 1-month project is something you put a goal for yourself to reach after 1 month, right? And it doesn't really matter if you reach it or not, because you're trying something out. You haven't wasted a lot of time if you decide not to continue with it, but it's something that is really cool to do. So make a 1-month project. Dedicate your time to this project. It's just a month. So just work on it 2 hours each day, right? You have a few things you want to solve. Work on it a little bit now and then, and know what your goal is. Your goal is not to make Fate of the Irblos as a continued and full game, but you're gonna make something that reassembles the basic things, the things that you think is the most important or hardest things to solve, so you have that base already finished when you're starting working on it. And also, don't worry about the details in this. I know that a lot of you are, and being a coder, I have noticed that optimization and making it the best single line of code you could ever make it. Nah, screw that. It's a hobby. Treat it like a hobby. Nobody cares. Nobody will see the god-awful code in Earblast because I will never show it. Because it's ridiculous. If a coder would see that, they would probably lose all the respect for me as a human being, which is fine. I remember halfway through the project, I had to redo all the buttons in the game because they took 50% of your frames per second in there, no matter your computer, right? And that was something that wasn't not working up until that point, but it was something that I realized, like, I should probably take a second look on that and do something else. And so I did. So I have a little video here showing my 1-month project that I did for Earblast. So hopefully this video here will be starting for you. It's going to be white for a moment and then go back to that, right? Cool. What is the most important thing? We need to have fires. That was my big challenge. I need to have a fire that can spread and that can be extinguished by a fire extinguisher. That was my biggest fear of if I don't get the fire to work, I will never get a game like Fast and the Light to work in VR. Here you can also see the first iteration of the pilot seat of the game, as I was experimenting with how the fire would spread through doors or not spread through doors. It figured something out in the end, right? Now I can't see the screen on my own view here, so I have to look up a little bit. The doors have another function. You have to be able to walk through them as a player. And this is my first prototype of a door, but there was a very interesting thing here. What if there are 2 players and one stands in it and one player goes through and goes out on the other side? Normally it would just close because someone walked away from it, right? So no, it's counting how many players are inside of the door frame and only closes when that number is 0. And that also would have to apply to the stupid NPCs that I for some goddamn reason decided to do in the game. Right. Oxygen simulation for the fire. The fire can't burn on forever. Eventually it will run out of oxygen. So that also showed the layout of the game. Oh, here are the buttons. The first one, which was crazy. I literally had an update event on your fingers, and when they were close enough to all the buttons in the game, all the time, every frame, then it would activate. Here you go. You have some enemy ships that you will be able to defend yourself from. You can see them, the first ships, they were just a cube. Cute. Right? You should also be able to shoot at the cube with your own weapons. So I got that going. Here you can see I didn't even have a ship in the beginning. It's just a laser that you're firing on. That's your enemy. Very threatening. And then, in the end, when your 1-month project is over, you get a friend in there. Oh, here's also the oxygen working for all the room. Sorry, I forgot about that one. Sometimes not working. 3000% oxygen in a room. That sounds great. Here we go. Show it off to a friend. Show your work that you have done the month. Get some feedback. By the way, show it to a friend you trust who can give you the honest opinions about whatever you have been making, right? First explosions also I made for the game is still in the game today. Let's go. Bam. There it is. Right? Cool. Interesting. So that's your 1 month project. And if at this point you feel like, oh, nah, you know what, this isn't for me, or I can't figure out this thing and I really need to figure it out, you can always come back to it later, or just completely give up on it. It doesn't matter. It's just 1 month. Who cares? You shouldn't care. Nobody else cares. Nobody knows about it. You just did something for a month, right? You probably learned a lot, though, and that's the most important thing. So, when I had finished that, I decided to continue with it, right? So, that's where the fun begins. And this is like where your additions to the original idea, your inspiration, really has to kick in. Where you give the game its, or world even, your game or world, its like soul and atmosphere. What really speaks from you to be cool in a game. I love space games. It's one of my favorite genres of space, or of games in general. And there was one really, really cool game that I actually played before today, just out of like nostalgia, called Free Space. Any Free Space fans in here? Come on.
Me.
Yes! Best space sim ever made, right? By the way, it's on Steam. Just saying. It's on Steam, and there's a very nice modding group that has made the game look like it's new today, and it's amazing. It blows my mind. Anyway, first space game I've ever played, actually first like single-player campaign game I ever played. And in this game there was this really cool feature you can see up in the corner there, with your friendly AIs in the game speaking to you, and there was always a little camera showing up with their ship and their background and what they were doing, and if they were exploding you could see things like blinking behind them, and they felt super real to me as a smaller person. Right? It had such a big impact. Like, I really felt it for these characters. So from that camera idea, it was like very scratchy noise, bad image quality, probably because they were just GIFs in there. But that's where the camera in Earblast comes from, because I wanted to have that. If your room is on fire and you want to let your crew know that, they can see the flames behind you as you're communicating with them, right? Super important. The nebula also was inspired from Free Space as well. Took a lot of inspiration from EVE Online. I will talk more about that in a little bit. And yeah, eventually in the beginning I actually just wanted to make like a space dogfighting game in VR, but nausea is a thing that I am sadly a victim to, and I can't really play it. So, keep going. Keep making things. You're now past your 1 month project. You can now do whatever you want with it, add whatever you want to. You have your base, and now is when you start building. I'm an architectural lighting designer in real life, and when I do a project, like finish it and send it out, it can take years before I maybe get sent an email of somebody's phone picture of the finished product, right? In VR, and especially in VR chat, you can make it in a day and then have your friends and yourself standing in your creation and experiencing it firsthand, right? You don't understand how nice that feels when you have been working in industry like lighting design, as I have for many years now. So get your friends in there, play test things, get feedback, observe how they are doing things, because you will always be playing the game differently than from real players, because you have an intention of how it should be played, but they come in completely blank, and they will do what's most intuitive to them, and a lot of times you would have to change things, or not, if you're me. People get used to it. Breaks are super good. Here's another funny fact. I don't use the Unity like in-game simulator to like just press play mode and simulate that I'm in VR chat right in the Unity like thing, right? I build my game every time. I build my game and let VR chat start and load me into the world so that I am in the game And that takes a lot of time, and that's my mini break. I go and have a glass of water. I go and do whatever. Like, just have a small little break. Disconnect yourself from getting locked into the zone of coders. The zone is something you generally should be avoiding, because when you're doing that, you get a lot of shit done. But the next day you look at it, it doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Like, you have no idea what you're doing, and it's really hard to build new things into the game. Okay, that is a lie. Fate of the Earblast was 90% the zone project. Every day I was in the zone. I kept going. Didn't think about future-proofing at all. Right now I'm kind of regretting that, because it's really hard for me to add more content to it, because everything is hard-coded into the game. Same thing with Laserdome. But I am working on a new game where I'm completely dedicated to make it modular, so I can add more things into it as time goes on. Right? Take breaks, avoid the zone. So how do you become productive then? Lists are good to a sort of degree. We're all different. Having a list that is like a page long with like 20 different things that you have to do is probably generally not a good thing, because that only makes you stress out. So remove all of those and have like 3, maybe 5 at top. Really important things. It's a shame that Pika Pete isn't here, because on a live stream for a very long time ago, someone asked him how he got his things done. And he said, I like to imagine myself to only have 1 hour before the deadline, and when that deadline is done, I have to push it away to someone else to work on my project. And what is the most important thing you can do now so that the next person picking it up can easily continue? Work on that for this hour. And then just do that every hour. And you will realize that you have a very, very small set of super important things that you can work on that will just push yourself forward in the progress of making whatever you're working on. Share your progress. I have a Twitter account where I post every 2 weeks or so about my projects openly. Like, I don't keep any secrets at all. And that's not just to be nice to all of you to like see cool things. That's for me to push myself to have something to show off. I even do a weekly video for my Patreons every week that is longer, and that is also super good for me, because I'm pushing myself to show off cool things that I'm actually working on, right? At the beginning of the week, I go, what do I want to show for my Patreons in a week, right? What can I do today to make it easier to show that thing for my Patreons, right? Every week, what can I do today to make it easier to finish my projects towards the end of the week? And then when you start thinking like that, you think, okay, what can I do this week to make it cool to show something this month, right? And you have kind of found a system there of making something today that make it easier for a week, that make it easier for a month, and then your end goal is, of course, your finished product. And you can always update that every week. What's the most important thing right now, right? So back to the term I used before. No production is complete original, right? Star Wars. I think it was the first movie that used that weird flat shockwave that doesn't make any sense, but it looks cool. It looks cool, right? Free Space did the same weird shockwaves, they're just flat. And then finally, EVE Online kind of mastered it with their explosions. And I used that as well, but EVE Online actually added another thing. They added a kind of like, think of a firework, a tension, like it fires up into the air, tension is building, what will happen? And it just keep glowing at you and then boom, release, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to show one of the explosions from the game, and I want you to think about that, like build up and release, and also the weird flat shockwaves. That doesn't make any sense, but they look cool. And right, the weird flat shockwave does a lot for the explosions. So who wants to see all of the explosions in the game go off at once? Okay.
Kill some people, sir.
Here's the thing.
Down, Nate. Down.
If you crash,
Let's see how it
you
goes.
shouldn't. I had a person in here who was like on a Steam Deck and they were fine. But, you know, you look away if you're scared. I'll give you a
Or
second.
have epilepsy.
No, it's just bright. Here we go. Here we go.
Right?
Yeah, that last one is the Ether Lord going bye-bye, the longest one. And I can trigger that whenever I want. Just be known about that. Like I have that power in here.
Now put it on.
That wasn't
We
working.
can't,
Did someone crash? Everyone is good? Disconnect if you crash.
Good.
Explosions make me
Nice. Everyone is here.
Yeah, good. Alright.
So, now that we've gone this far, we had a little bit of comedic release here, which makes me feel very good. Let's talk about the game itself. Behind the code, how does it work? Right? Earbloss is... yeah, it doesn't sometimes. Earbloss is super complicated in how it kind of works between all the stations. And I'm gonna try to go through that. So when you press the start button of the game, the map you see here, generates all the events of the game, and it generates all the exterior looks based on each map of the game. So no matter if you change pilot, you will never get the same thing twice. Or if you go backtrack, you will get the same thing twice, right? You see the little numbers here between the things? You don't see that. That's a debug thing that only I have access to. But those basically show what kind of event you will be walking into. So the number 6 there is either empty or free loot, right? The number 4 is one of those generic, find someone and we fight them. And then we have the higher numbers, which are when you get the faction weapons or special events that only happens in that special region of Earbloss. Right? So you select a node and you press it again, and you get sent into the warp drive. That's pretty cool, huh? Slow motion warp drive? Yeah, let's go. So, this is not just a cool effect. This is essentially my loading screen. Because while this is happening, the pilot of the game is sorting a lot of things out and syncing it up with the rest of the crew so that you all see the same thing. 99.999 times percent of the time. Sometimes network events don't really reach their final destination in VRChat, and that's just how it is, right? So the pilot decides what event to spawn based on what star they went to, but there are many 4s. There are many of the event number 4, which is the generic kill someone. I think there's close to like 50 different ones. So it chooses one of them based on a long list that also was synced up at the start of the game. It also decides what level of the enemy ship that possibly will spawn in and sync that up with the rest of the players. They also decide what kind of ship, if it's a faction-based or a random one or whatever. And then what weapons to sync up and send that over to the weapons person, who will decide the stats of the enemy ship. They will decide how the enemy ship's, lightly termed, used here, AI. It's very primitive actually, but it simulates a crew on the enemy ship, right? It simulates what that crew will prioritize when they take damage and things like that. And also it's a very important part of the players that takes control of the weapons, that they have instant reaction from when they are firing at the enemy ship. It has to happen as the weapons hit the enemy ship. They have to get the response instantly, right? So if you stand in the weapons room, you can sometimes see the numbers go crazy all over the place. That's because it's trying to figure out what's going on. But for the weapons person, they always see it in real time. And then that information, plus whatever the pilot decided about your ship's evasion, for example, and the weapons decides or tells us the shield how the enemy weapons are doing, the shield then decides when the enemy shoots at you. So if you're having a really tough time as a shield person, just change computer who takes care of when the enemy shoots, right? Sometimes you'll be lucky. Kinetic and thermal damage that hits your ship is not decided by the shield person. That gets sent down to the doors because they have access to the oxygen of the whole ship in real time. Everyone is calculating the oxygen like locally, but only the person in control of the doors decides when the oxygen actually is unbreathable in a room, because that's super important for them to see on their screen when they open and closing door and takes out fires and all that stuff. They also decide where the fire gets going and where the breaches happen, and they decide when the fire stop. When you as a pilot takes out a fire, that event is sent down to the doors being like, hey, I took out this fire, and you as the doors go, okay, yeah, the fire is gone now. Good on you, let's go. So again, these oxygen meters things is also controlled by them. Like, everyone has different numbers in the oxygen room, but only the person in control is actually deciding. Usually they are quite close for everyone because they're all doing the same math equations. Next then, where does... these slides, I swear to God, I have been wanting to do this since I made the game. Right? The door is also controlling the oxygen and cameras. I know you can also see in this one that the pilot is in charge of the repair bots and the engines to decide your evasion and all that funny stuff. So every enemy you meet, and during that whole battle that is going on, all of these events are going in between all the different systems. So you can imagine if you're a single player, your computer is taking care of all of these calculations back and forth all the time to yourself though, so it's not network events, thank God. But this is generally what's going on in the ship, because then you add the environmental threats and, you know, the aliens boarding the ship and where they are going, what they're doing or not, because sometimes they get stuck indoors and I don't know why. And I also lied before. I said that I wasn't going to show any udon things, but you know, kind of look a little bit the same there, right? So, and I completely forgot to go to the next slide here, or next environment. Here we have all the enemies. It doesn't matter. The warp drive is pretty cool anyway. So these are all the enemy model ships in a nice looking environment that I pre-made for the world as well. But now I want to talk about the story. In Fast and the Light, you are being chased by a rebel or whatever they are. I can't remember at this point because I'm super tired. They're rebels. Nice. I got it. And you're supposed to like fight this big ass mothership. I didn't really want to do that in this game because it goes against like my knowledge of how a good story is told. And I am very aware of that people don't give much single crap about the story, except one thing, which I will come to. So I have a friend. He's really, really, really into board games. His name is Philip, or Father Hyperion in the credits. This is him with a fake mustache. We were playing some weird board game that was connected to the computer, and he told us all to get a loose mustache and put it on our face and just pretend that we were 1940s detectives in the zombie apocalypse or something. I don't know. But it was fun, right? He agreed to write the lore for the game, the base of the story, that we would then craft the events and environments and all that too. So he wrote up a big ass paper on every alliance or faction in the game. And then one of my artists took that information and made a cute little frog there for the Balfagors, right? Everyone's favorite. Is Asago in here? Oh, he isn't.
I think so.
He's the voice actor for the frog in the store. Lovely person. And then, of course, I had to decide how the ship was going to look based on that lore as well. So, Balfagors, they are rich. Okay, gold, yellow, let's go. Easy, bam, next. And then we wrote a bunch of events for that faction and what they would be kind of wanting in life and what they were looking for in this vast made-up universe that we were creating. So, there is one very important thing that a story needs to be interesting, and that is a conflict. In Earblas, your conflict is in the beginning to understand what the ship is and the small little enemies that you meet, especially the first time you're playing. Generally, what I'm speaking now is when you're first time playing, right? It's difficult, you replay it a lot, but you keep coming back to it because the conflict in yourself is, oh, I want to get further into the game. I'm starting to get the game now. Let's try again. And then finally, I'm going to introduce to you a Swedish term here, a raggare. This is pulled from Wikipedia. It's a person who has a vast interest in old American cars, right? They're quite classy. They're pretty well doing with their car stuff. They are kind of mostly going around in Northern Europe, in Sweden, Norway, mainly. Budgie, Widgie, Rocker, Greaser. You know what I'm talking about, right? In Sweden, however, there is a subculture of that, which we call a Volvo raggare. And they drive a crappy old Volvo car for some reason. And they drive around in the streets with their ass out their window, drive-bys people in the streets. They're loud, they're obnoxious, they eat hot dogs, and just generally being a nuisance in the world. Now, personally, I don't know any raggare, like a true raggare, but I have a friend who at a LAN party just said, "Oh no, I can pretend to be one." Right? So we snapped this picture of him. And you can all see where this is going. This is the day that our dear villain came to life. We recorded all the voice lines this day. I sent it to my artist. They alien-fied him a little bit, put some colors on him, put him into a car, and then bam, we have our dear beloved conflict in the game. Right? If you expect me to stand here and translate all that he's saying, I'm not gonna do that, because a beautiful thing about language is that I can swear in Swedish how much I want. If you don't know Swedish, you can't take offense of it. If you do know Swedish, it's just funny what he's saying. But if you really think about what he's saying, it's actually pretty fucked up. So, this is your conflict, right? They have to be rememberable, hated. That was my goal. I wanted you guys to play this game, and the first time you met him, the game has been so serious up until this point, and then this guy flies in a weird ass looking Volvo with flames on it and just blows you up. How many of you like has nicknames for him? Because his name Rimkulakoni is not just because it's funny in Swedish. It's because I wanted you guys to make up nicknames for him that you could pronounce. How about it? Do we have any nicknames for him in here?
Discord mod.
We just
Discord mod.
Discord mod.
Yeah, we just call him Connie.
Connie, yeah, that works.
We short it Connie.
Yeah, I saw so many streamers making up names for this guy, and I swear to God, it's the most fun I've ever had in my life. Watching everyone fail about it. Super memorable. First time you meet him, he blows you up, and that's also like a filter to stop you from going further into the game, because if you don't beat him there, you're not gonna stand a chance in Sector 4, right? So I rather just end your run early. and have you try again. It worked every time. I don't think anyone who didn't have an experienced player in the game lost to this guy for the first 2-3 runs, and then you beat him. And, yeah, let's go. Oh shit, we meet him again when he comes out of that ship. What a dick. He's back, right? And this time he doesn't fire at you. He throws a bomb at your ship, and you're not prepared to that. You're prepared to do a fight with him. You stand at your stations, right? And he just sets your whole ship on fire, shows up your cameras, and you lose again. Damn it. Okay, let's play again. Let's beat him again. You start to like feel rage for this guy every time you see him. And then of course in the end you get the final boss, and that's challenging. And it's for a very long time when we were making, or when I was making this game, I didn't have an end. This guy here was the end. There was no way to beat this guy's ship, right? He was unbeatable for a very, very long time. And that is because we haven't figured out how we were going to end the game. We knew that we were looking for a treasure. We didn't know what the treasure was. For a very, very long time, I thought that you were going to beat Connie and then loot the treasure, happy living ever after, and the game ends. Like, right? But that doesn't give you a nice way to loot the game. So at the same time here, I was looking for a nickname for your own ship, the Earbloss as it's called right now. The Earbloss is based on a natural phenomenon where a bunch of gas in the swamp comes up to the surface and self-ignites, and there's a really cool Swedish myth about this, that it's the soul of dead people dancing around forever, luring people into the swamp where they eventually die and become Earbloss themselves. See where I'm going with this?
I got it.
So,
oh my gosh.
So the name of the ship decided what the end of the game was gonna be. And then I sat in there with Howim, who's also not in here today. Damn it. We sat in the front of the ship before the final boss with Connie, and he said, what if you make the Nebula like a living thing, a big, massive, supernatural being? And something clicked in my head. Yeah, that sounds cool. And the message, like the whole intro to the game was already written by my story writer, right? We came up with the end there that make him like control that ether lord or whatever. So Glothorg is our Earbloss soul that lures us into his trap so that we become the next Earbloss. So it all loops in a weird way. The ending of the game is already spoiled if you know what an Earbloss is in Swedish weird mythology. So yeah, he uses the crew of other ships to lure new crews towards him. There he is. Right? So, that's a game that I made. The basics of it anyway. There is a little bit of extra thing I want to talk about here about the soundtrack of the game. Because the main reason that I'm making these games, Laserdome, Fate of the Earbloss, and the upcoming Avivors, the Worms-like game that I'm working on, is because I've always wanted to make music for games. That's my big drive, right? I never got a gig. You kind of have to prove yourself, right? So I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna make my own game and the soundtrack for it. So if anything, I'm super proud of the soundtrack being on Spotify and like iTunes and all of that. And this year when everyone got their like Spotify Wraps, people DM'd me with them having me as a top 5 artist. And that blew my fucking mind. I could not handle it. It was so cool to see. But whether or not, like, everything came together super nicely for Earbloss in general, I had to impress people to come back and listen to my soundtrack, basically. And I kind of did. Do we have any music producers in here? Vanessa is there. You dabble with it, yeah? That's all you need to do. I dabbled with Fruit Loops since 2004. So
I
I'm an old fart.
like a decade.
Yeah, it's a long journey. But a rememberable soundtrack has to have a theme, right? It has to come back to you. And all the different factions had to have their own soundtrack to tell their story. The Void Whisperer has a little bit of choir in the background. The Void Whisperer's weapon is probably the most loved weapon in the game. The choir of it and all that sound design is so cool to me. And it's really, really what makes games and worlds immersive in VR chat. So put an extra hour of work on your audio design for your words, and I will be extremely satisfied and happy with it. So, as we're talking about soundtrack, let's go back to Gloomplane. Anyone know which song this is from the game? I think it's the Balfagor's theme, right? Anyway.
Yeah, it's Belfagor's.
I'm pretty sure it is. I threw one of the soundtracks in here and called it a day. I pushed this map together like this week, so I don't really know the details of it. But that's basically all I was going to talk about. I had asked my Discord to ask me questions about things, so I'm just going to go through a few of them. Max here, who is... Are you kidding me? He's not here either?
Yeah.
Wow.
No,
Wow, nobody that I want to reference is
Also
in
kind of
here.
dipped
Wow.
after the tourney.
Yeah,
People are
most people
tired.
probably did. Was there anything you wish you could have added to the game but couldn't? Yes. Of course there was. Remember in the beginning when I said I don't have long lists? I don't, but I have a long list of things I won't do. Okay. Things I take off the important list get thrown into the bin list. And in there is like things like being able to board enemy ships. And I did have a very small prototype for that, but then I realized, oh shit, I have to make more AIs and design the interior of every ship. No. Forget that. I have the stations, right? They're weird. It's an experiment for horror. I've always been interested in making horror games, so it was a little bit of a test for it in there. I wanted to make more things you could board, like go down to a planet's surface and look for valuables there. There's a lot of cool things I wanted to add, of course there is. The main thing that kept me going is because I'm a solo artist for the most of the things I make, and at some points you have to call it a day and stop worrying about the details, right? Just push it out, call it done, call it quits. Kiri Snowfox, are they in here?
No.
Nope. Well, good, because they get the question read anyway. As for art direction, is there a reason why everything is neon instead of more realistic-ish, or did you think it just looked cool? So, I don't use Udon Sharp. I don't use the player, what do you call it? The thing that lets you play the game directly in play mode in Unity. I can't remember what it's called. You know what I'm talking about. And I also don't use Blender. Right? 3 no-nos. I use SketchUp. Here's the model outside here. Made in SketchUp. This is made in SketchUp. The laser drum gun is made in SketchUp. All the enemy ships are made in SketchUp because SketchUp is the program I have been working with as a lighting designer for 7 years. I'm really comfortable with it. And Unity has native support to read a SketchUp file, and you literally just change this in Unity instead of in SketchUp. So when you're done with it in SketchUp, you forget about it, and you do everything live in Unity instead. Sure, it adds a few more triangles than needed for a flat surface, for example. And yeah, it does add a little more draw calls for all the materials of different colors on things. But who cares? It's not my problem. I can run the game. Right?
You all have phones, right?
Right? So, ending this talk here. Thank you everybody for listening, by the way. I hope you walk away here with a lot of inspirations of beginning your 1-month project that I always wanted to do. Just do it. Go up a few hours earlier in the morning and just work on it by yourself without having friends annoying you, right? And right over there where Nestor is sitting, there is a little particle system. And if you stand there, you can ask me questions, and everyone in here and I will be able to hear you. So line up behind there where Nestor stands, kinda. And then you're free to ask any questions to me. Let's go. Also to the shopkeeper music in here. Groovy.
Hope you're doing well.
So we have Dreamer over there. I need to make my my nameplates a little bit bigger because they're super small on my screen now. Nameplate size medium. Normal.
But you can trade them?
Ether the Dreamer. Let's go. Question. Oh, they're changing microphones. They're working on it.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, sorry.
Nice.
In the VC for the camera crew. So, thoughts on doing a save and load feature with this game or any future games? Because there's a script out there that allows you to like save to your avatar, like with the parameters on there. It's really cool. I want to incorporate in my stuff, but what are your thoughts about that before, like in lieu of VR chat giving native support for, you know, persistence in worlds?
Sure thing. Nestor Boy over there, who helped me a lot with Earblast Small Things, is actually one of the people who made the avatar saving system. So I'm well aware of it.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm well aware of it. And when
He's actually
when it's
here.
like officially released in VR chat, of course I'm gonna use it. But I never used Udon Sharp because it wasn't official. I never used anything because it's not official from VR chat. I'm super scared of an update happening and breaking all my extra plugins into the project that I have. So I'm waiting for things to become official. And during that time, I also learn. As they make Udon stronger, I learn along with them because I don't know any better than Udon Sharp, right? I think you, the Udon Graph, I mean. I think the Udon Graph is the best thing in the world. Imagine that as a coder.
Right.
So, that's good.
Awesome.
We have Nate here as well. Regular player.
Oh,
Hello.
I have a question for like your early development, because as the people here with you is your early development. I remember seeing a scene about your shields, how they actually take 2 spots instead of 1. How was that like? How did you change that idea to make it just 1? And will you be willing to add it back in the future? Because it sounds like a good idea.
I had it in the 1 month project because I thought it looked cool, but looking cool is not the same thing as functional, and it was just annoying, really. You ran out of buffers instantly because you had to charge a shield twice for it to be able to defend anything in your ship. So instead I made the ship charges more expensive in the shop in the end and just made it that way. So no, I don't think I will bring it back. It was a dumb feature. It looked cool, but a little bit too confusing.
It's the bin feature.
Yeah, it's one of the bin features, yeah.
It's the bins. Alrighty.
Pennylicious.
69.
Let's go. 69.
Hi. Mine's just more of a quick. So earlier you were saying how when you were talking about Connie that you made it so that we could all come up with our own names for them. I was just kind of curious. Did you actually have a name for this creature that I'm sure most of us all know about? If you can't see, it's the little alien that runs around.
His name is Gunnar. At least the one in Gloomplane, the friendly one, is called Gunnar. Otherwise, we just call him the Swarm Grunt. But he has a name, and it's Gunnar. G-U-N-N-A-R.
So we just call them grunts then?
Yeah, grunts or Gunnar.
Oh my god.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Iron, please.
I think you just answered it in a way, but I just wanted to make sure. When I think about faster than light Earbus, the project is very, very big and creative, and surely took a long of time. So one of the first thoughts I have is, were you ever close to the burnout? And if yes, how did you deal with it?
That's a super good question. And I haven't been close to a burnout, I think, but I have been very frustrated many times. That's what the breaks are for. And work on something else instead. so the concert world, which will happen in VRCon this Friday, the 23rd. That was something I worked on the side of Earblast, like on the exact same timeline, and they kind of finished at the same time as well. So whenever I was frustrated with an issue in Earblast, like the map not syncing up with everybody, or weapons spawning in stupid like things or combinations, I went and worked on something else that I know I can just do. That isn't problem solving. That is just a creative process. So isn't problem solving. That is just one project you should have that is problem solving and learning things, and then one side project is really good to have where you just be creative. And then one side it could be anything. It could be reading a book. It could be painting with a brush. It could be reading a book, or making another project entirely in code. Or making another. But yeah, if you ever feel stressed out, like it's a hobby, right? Treat it like a hobby. Nobody is expecting anything on you. It's a hobby, right? Treat it like a hobby. Except yourself. Nobody is expecting. And you can decide for your own goal. Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Erpaka.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, because your Laserdome world is very small based, like the avatars, and in Fate of the Abyss, you basically have to be very tall to play the game properly. What was the reason for that? Is it just because of the collider that is big, or in VRChat everything is kind of small and yeah?
No. The reason that Laserdome avatars are the size they are is because of my ignorance and not knowing better back then. So in Laserdome I wanted you to feel like you were running around quickly, right? And I didn't know how to change the speed of your avatar walking around. But I did know how to make a small avatar, and it feels like you're running faster. That's why you're small in Laserdome. And the whole map was built around this size or scale, right? So for me to change that now and make it normal size, it would be just an entire unnecessary thing to do, because we have a set of avatars now that are the correct height. And Earblasts, I usually walked around with the default VRChat characters that are real size while I was testing it to make sure that it felt good. And then I added the floor heightener for everyone who was shorter, basically.
That's a really cool system, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, Obey.
Hi. Once you're done with releasing version 1 of Wars, do you plan on adding anything new to Earblast? Any features?
Many nights I lay awake to think about cool things I could do with Earblast. And about as many nights I wake up the next morning and forget about it. Mostly because I'm not working on the project, but it's very possible that I will do more things with Earblast, but I don't have anything planned right now for it. It's hard to go back to a project where you worked on it in the zone for 90% of the time, because I get very angry with myself. Why did I do it that way? That's stupid. And then it's not fun anymore. So I might do a part 2, maybe. It's not impossible. Like just like I done with Laserdome, I kind of redone Laserdome 2.5 times from scratch, because I learn better and know better. And the same thing might happen with Earblasts if I get into the mood of it, basically.
Okay, thank you. Also, thanks for making Connie's theme such a
banger.
Such a banger.
Absolutely busted.
Thank you. That's also part of the rememberability of him. Like, yeah, it's a really cool theme. Freaky old man. Well, one of my kind.
Hello. First off, Google SketchUp, my guy. Wow. That is.
Thank you.
I don't know whether to say my condolences or like applaud you for like using that. So that ties into my question. Optimization? How the hell do you handle that with especially Google SketchUp? So the project optimization.
I don't.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Well, fair enough.
No, it's
I
get
worry
why
you about,
optimization
like,
is important for many people, especially if you have been into coding and making things for a long time. And I have started recently to also appreciate optimization, right? But
Yeah,
when making a
yeah.
creative thing, I want to not worry about those details. Like when I'm done,
And just express yourself.
yeah, I want to.
Right.
I want to keep going instead of being stuck on the same thing, making it better, making it better, making it better, making it more optimized, more optimized. Come on, let's go. It's quest optimized now. And Eardrop wouldn't be
Yeah.
done until like 6 years in the future. So no, I do optimizations when I feel that, oh shit, this is not working, I have to do something about it, like the buttons in the game,
Right.
who in the beginning were just updates looking for the distance between all the buttons in the game on every frame, and if we were close enough, it triggered all the
Yeah.
buttons. That was stupid,
So then
and I
my
recognized that
last
and I remade it.
question would be then,
Yes, go for it.
project bloat. How do you deal with like your project getting bloated and too many features then? Do you have like a set goal of like, you go, right, we can't do this, that needs to go?
Yeah, I have
So
a...
file sizes and stuff.
Oh, file size, sorry. Crunch, compress, and call it a day, basically. No, but bloating, like in terms of... That's a good question. I don't think I have an answer for it because I haven't cared much for it yet.
Right, fair enough.
No, Nestor over there, he's been working with me in one project and he knows. Everything just stays.
Just
It's there in
everything
one-
just goes.
Everything is there in spirit, even though it's not
Brilliant.
working.
Well, thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you. Luna.
Hello. So first, thanks for many memorable moments with the game. Also, I have kind of like question slash suggestion, because when you want to drop a weapon or your fire extinguisher, you have to press the blue button, choose it, and surely nice that you can like prepare them in the flying in the air. But when you use it, they disappear. And I was like thinking maybe like do them like grabbing things. Many things like you can grab from the shoulders or your hips to make them the entire process like faster and easier. So the pre-preparation would be needed.
Yeah. So I have an answer for that, and that is I don't want the game to be on your side. No, I'm kidding. So I want to despawn the weapons completely out of you to save on network things that are synced in the game, basically. So when you release them, the game stops working on them, right? And that is to make sure that the other things in the game can work more properly. And
well, like making them local wouldn't like work or something?
Probably, but it was not in my mind at the time, and I thought that them just flying away and not being in a view is a lot more easy, since you would accidentally pick them up, and I also would have to program exactly where on your avatar they would be sitting, and there would be a lot more updates every frame to track them on your avatar and things like that. But it was, I think, it was on my mind to have it like on your hip for a while. That's why this guy has like a little pouch here that would simulate that. But in the end, I just despawn them to make it easier on the game to run, basically.
I see. Optimization. You done then.
Maybe.
But that just makes everyone prepare them, and they still render for everyone.
Yeah, the
I mean,
preparation.
Yeah. Yeah, there's many things that I could have done differently for sure, and I recognize that, but I'm not going to.
It's fair. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Vanessa is up here now, yeah.
So this is a question actually I was bringing up because of the whole udon coding side. Yes, I'm going there, Cyrix.
Let's go.
But this is coming from somebody who's actually like physically seen that coding, like in multiple different voice calls. How do you keep track of everything when actually like developing it for that first month?
You don't.
What's keep track?
Fair enough.
No comments, no groups, no nothing. I don't know. They recently gave me a search function in Udon. Thank you. That was great. I didn't know I needed it, but damn, that's a good feature. Yeah. I kind of remember it. It's Might be the same way I remember how to play music. I don't use any sheet music. I just have it like memorized in my head where everything should go with my fingers. So could be related to that. Like I look at the udon code and I recognize the shape and I know, oh, that's where I'm going. Kinda. Sometimes not. Now I have a search feature. Okay. Main.
Hello. So, out of curiosity, was there any plan with the grunts, or what we call them, funny cat-looking people, to ever, or not just them, just the enemy in general, to ever have them shoot at you, or was the plan to always just
Yes. I wanted them to have like a psychic kind of projectile that they could shoot on you, like down a corridor. But that instead turned into them freezing you in place and catching up with you because I ran out of space in the udon behavior. And I literally couldn't add any more nodes into it. So, but yeah, the limitations, and now I know how to get around that, of course. I have get heightened in my udon knowledge a little bit. So if I would do it today, they would probably behave very differently than what they actually do.
I guess secondary question real quick. For how they look like, was there any inspiration behind that?
Oh, you would have to ask my artist who drew them based on the lore for the hive mind people. So that wasn't me.
Got it.
I'm sure they had an issue, not an issue, but a thought in mind when they read the lore, and they just based it on that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm a bit curious about your musical development, the workflow. How did you plan, like, for example, I'm gonna create this number of rooms and I will create associated music to them, or how did you proceed to create the whole soundtracks?
I played Fast and the Lights, and I recognized that they had different themes for the different areas, kinda. It's a little bit more dynamic in there. But that was the base for it. So I wanted to have one soundtrack for each faction, at least. And I came up with a few melodies for the Fate of the Earblood theme, the first song you hear in the game. And then I took those melodies and just rearranged them a little bit, have them come back to you in the game to kind of tie them all together, but having, say, the crawl music be a little bit more robotic, like metal-y in a way. So yeah, there was a lot of thought of how to make it sound like that faction's music, and it's very hard for me to express how it was made when I generally just took a picture and put it on a screen in front of me, and then just started plonking away on my keyboard. And I'm like, oh, this sounds cool, let's go, and record it.
Nice.
Yeah,
thank you.
Alpaca, it's back.
Yeah, I just remembered something else. Are you happy with the balance of the game, or have you